Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Barely Bookish podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about Frankenstein, and apparently, we're all talking about different versions. And I am joined today by Allison and Becca.
Hello.
Hi.
What a multitude of different stories we have here. I have the 1818 version, which I did not realize I did not own previously. So here's the thing. Here's what we've discovered in our research. Some versions just don't say what they are. That's knowledge we have now.
I'm still unclear
Right.
what version I'm reading.
Same.
I know it's an early version based on some of the character origins that we discussed before.
Yeah. Mine says Frankenstein, the 1818 text, and I trust Penguin Classics more than I should realistically trust anything. So, there's also a whole little moment in which I forgot that the original name of this book was not Frankenstein, and it has it.
Yeah, the modern Prometheus. Yeah.
Yes.
I love that.
And it was originally in 3 volumes, which I also did not know.
Oh, short book for 3 volumes.
Mm-hmm.
It's not very long.
But
mine is also the Penguin Classics version, but not the 1818. I think mine is the 1836 version or 1831. I don't know, but it does say first published 1818.
So I know we've been saying it's not very long. My version is a little over 200 pages. That's the actual book.
I am reading the Amazon Classics Kindle version, so pages are negligible. I am not sure how many pages
A foreign
it is.
concept.
I have no idea what version it is. I'm unclear. But like I said, I think it is an earlier version. When I was reading reviews on it, people were saying it sounds like it's an 1820s version, but I don't know if Amazon just adapts its own version. So mine is close to... This says it's 246 pages, but I don't know if that's based on my text size and everything. So
mine says 242 pages.
Yeah, mine's at like 221, I think.
Yeah. So many different versions of this book.
Yeah.
Okay, but they're all good stories.
It's funny, though, because Becca and I read this together last year around Halloween as our book club book, and we never noticed any differences when we had talked about it.
Literally, we read through it and we're just like, hey, that was really good. And then just kept moving. We never once broke it down of like, what did we actually just read? Because it does get kind of crazy.
Yeah, I feel like we didn't do that in depth of a book club review on it, and that was probably where we didn't recognize that they were different versions.
Right.
Well, we're going to do that today.
We sure are.
And we're going to start with letter 1, which is dated for December 11th.
Wait, can we talk quickly about the preface, though? Does yours have the preface on how this was started?
So I have an introduction, which kind of gives a whole shebang about Mary Shelley.
So my preface says that this started, they were out with a bunch of their friends, a bunch of couples. They were basically at an Airbnb in the 1800s, and they were having some bad weather. And so they decided to stay in and have like a short story competition. And this is the only one that ended up getting published. That's what my version says. And I just think that's a cute little origin story.
That's incredible. Yeah, mine has a preface. Did I read it? Absolutely not. Mine has about 40 pages. Like, this is where letter 1 is for me. And you have all of this before letter 1. Like, it's, I know this is an audio medium, so you can't see what I'm doing. But there's a lot before the book actually starts.
Mine has an introduction by Charlotte Gordon, and when I glanced through it, it gave me immediate spoilers that Victor Frankenstein becomes a mad scientist after creating his monster, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna stop you right there. Like, while I know that, that's the one thing I do know about this book.
That.
It's been
No,
200 years. I'm sure we
like-
could have figured it out by now.
You're like, all right, we
that's
can
the
put the
one thing
spoiler
I
in the
know.
front.
I can't risk the fact that there might be something else in there.
Yeah.
Like, it's lucky that the one thing I saw that I did already know. I'm scared though, so I'll come back and I'll read that at the end.
Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, I have read this entire book, and I'm not good at keeping my mouth shut. So I'm gonna have a really hard time not sharing spoilers. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna make sure nothing slips out, but it's gonna be hard.
I feel like there's gonna be a lot of never
Yep,
mind.
I'm gonna have to cut myself off quite a bit, I think, or just like straight up lie and just be like, just kidding, I don't know.
Who could say?
In fact,
Who could say?
that's why I was kind of hoping that we would have a larger section, because I think it's going to be a little hard to not give something away. But
yeah, but I think
we'll
next
do
time
it.
we're just gonna jump right into it because
Yeah.
it's gonna get good. Like chapter 4 and then like beyond, it gets good. My all-time favorite chapter is chapter 8. Oh, we could do a whole episode on it. I love chapter 8. I cannot wait to like psychologically break down what happens in there. But we're gonna get there. I'm way ahead.
I think it'll help too with me being like, if we stick pretty chronologically, to just be
Mhm.
like talking about what we're talking about in that moment. Hopefully that'll help.
Mhm.
We'll see. Okay, letter 1 in December, the snowy season. Immediately the letter starts off like, "Hey sister, guess what? Not dead, so that's good."
Hey,
Which
sister.
is my favorite way.
Hey, sister.
I mean, he gets
Hey,
right to the
little
point.
sisters. Literally.
It felt like such a sibling letter. Like, hey, yo,
Yeah.
I'm not dead. It's been a minute.
Honestly, the only sibling relationship I believe in literature at this moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I like how he flirts around with like, you may not ever hear from me again. This may be it. Like, and I'm like, who jokes around like that if not with a sibling?
See, when I read it, I didn't
Correct.
think of it as a joke. I thought of him as like a very nervous person.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like, I don't know if this is the last. You know?
See, when I read through this, I highlighted every time where I was like, wow, he's really ambitious. Like, he doesn't know a lot of what he's getting himself into, but he's going balls to the wall. Like, he's going all out. So to me, I'm like, I don't think he sounds that nervous. I think he's like not considering the consequences of his actions. And he's like, I may or may not die. We'll see. You know, taking it a little too lightly. Reckless. Which, I mean, he's what, only 28? I think he says in letter 1, he's 28. Is that right?
I believe so, yeah. I just
So,
like him being
not too far.
chaotically like, I could die.
Yeah.
Who knows? Could be. So in this one, very specifically, it noted, and I wrote this down because, you know, obviously I read the first couple chapters of not the 1818 version, and this did not happen, but it said that he felt a cold breeze, and upon feeling this cold breeze, it sang to him, saying that he needed to go to the North Pole.
That's in the 1818 version?
I was like, oh. Okay.
Wow, that is definitely not in this version. He does say, this breeze, which has traveled from the regions towards which I'm advancing, gives me a foretaste of those icy climes. So maybe that's the rewritten part.
That's what mine
like,
says.
I heard my name on the wind. Oh, yours says the same, Allison?
Yes.
Let me see if I can find
Inspired-
exactly what it said.
So I'm
Unspirited by
following
this
all
wind
the
of
colors of the wind.
promise. My daydreams have become more clear. Thought that part out was just
Oh, there's a preface in here. I didn't even read it.
My preface is from P.B. Shelley, 1818. Is that her son, her one and only surviving son? No, because it was written in 1818.
Is that her spouse? I feel like her
Percy
spouse starts with a
Shelley's.
P.
It's only one. I passed the summer of 1816 in the environment.
So here's the line. It says, I am already far north of London, and as I walk in the streets of Petersburg, I felt a cold northern breeze play upon my cheeks, which braces my nerves and fills me with delight. Do you understand this feeling? This breeze, which has traveled from the regions toward which I am advancing, gives me the foretaste of those icy climes. Inspirited by this wind of promise, my daydreams have become more fervent and vivid. I try in vain to be persuaded that the pole is the seat of frost and desolation. It it ever proceeds itself to my imagination as a region of beauty and delight.
Okay, mine says the exact same thing.
Oh,
I
really?
didn't take that as him saying like the wind told him he needed to go. But to me, I'm like, why did he pick the North Pole? I don't fully understand why he was going there. So that kind of makes some sense.
That was not in my version. So I don't know what I was reading.
Really?
Yeah. It was like, oh, it was windy, but it was not like as much like
Yeah.
as direct, I felt like.
I do wish I had like a map to look and see, because he keeps talking about St. Petersburg and Archangel, and I'm like, I don't fully know where he is, but I know he's up there.
Yeah.
This book reassured me how poorly I understand geography.
Same here. Because most of it takes place in like Eastern Europe, I'm pretty sure. Not super familiar with Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
When I was a kid and I thought I was going to have like this fancy library, I thought I'd have one of those really big spinning globes.
Hell yeah.
And now I feel like I actually need one, you know?
We do kind of need one for this, yeah.
Like on the big stand where you can... Yeah, that'd be cool.
Just full hand situation.
Yeah.
I had a globe. I don't know why. My parents got me one. Like I had like a pretty hefty sized one when I was a kid.
There are cool ones out there too.
Yeah. This is very plastic, not very aesthetic. I don't know why. We find out that the writer of this letter is not well educated, but he read a lot of books about traveling on the seas, and he found out his father's dying wish is that his uncle would not become would not have a life on the sea. Like that was his one wish, and that made me laugh, to be honest.
I loved that.
It kind of felt
that like at one point there was just a little boy out there reading a whole bunch of like fiction books about the ocean, and the dad was like, this is fiction, none of this is real. And the dad's like, I know I'm gonna die, uncle, you better make sure he doesn't go out there and try to get out to sea, because it's all not real. And I feel like reading his perspective of things and how like ambitious and gung-ho he is, I'm like, oh, you know nothing, you know absolutely nothing. But he does talk about him going out there. He says, I accompanied the whale fishers on several expeditions to the North Sea. I voluntarily endured cold, famine, thirst, and want of sleep. I often worked harder than the common sailors during the day and devoted my nights to the study of mathematics, the theory of medicine, and those branches of physical science which a naval adventurer might derive the greatest practical advantage. So he was kind of self-taught a little bit, but I still don't trust how much he actually knows, you know?
Yeah. He does make a reference to the fact that like 15-year-olds are more educated than him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, he wanted to be a poet. He was like, I studied to become a poet. I'm like, sir, this is not the place for poetry. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever watched Deadliest Catch, the crab fishing show.
Yeah.
I was obsessed with it when I was in middle school. Don't know why. But I cried when one of the captains died. I remember being severely depressed when one of the captains died. And I was in like 7th grade, and my mom was like, what the fuck? Like, this is not real. But that's what I pictured this as, is like Deadliest Catch style oceans.
Yeah. I feel like that's pretty accurate. And then he's just like, yeah, you know me, out here working on poetry. He's like, yeah, I lived as a poet for a year, even though I'd like it's imagine someone that like their most of their experience with literature is like texting, you know, and then they're like, oh yeah, on Instagram Live, they're like, I'm gonna actually become a poet. Like that's the energy I'm getting, you know.
It's like they watched a bunch of Deadliest Catch and then decided to go do it.
That right there. I think that's so funny.
To me, it's like every single person who does not have a serving background that's watched Below Deck, and then they're like, I think I could do that. I really like traveling. Like, they don't get to travel much. I mean, technically, yes, but it's like you're having a layover in that country. Like, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
You want to be the person chartering the yacht. You don't want to be the stewardess.
Yeah.
Which to me, I'm like, again, this comes down to money. Like, he's got a lot of money to just go out there and round up a crew of men and charter a boat and everything. I'm like, you've got a lot of money, and you just don't know what to do with yourself.
Yeah, and this one he specifically says that he's hoping to sail in June. Oh, I forgot to mention that he specifically says that he works harder on people on the boat than people that, oh my god, he works harder than people who were hired to work on that boat. And I'm like, I'm sure you do. Like,
Yeah. I read that and I'm like, I don't know. And then there was a point where he said he twice actually hired myself as an undermate in Greenland, in a Greenland whaler, and acquitted myself to admiration. So he's saying he hired himself, aka he snuck onto these boats twice. And then afterwards, he decided he was just going to fire himself because he thought he did a good enough job. Like, what?
I did not catch that.
I did not catch that
Yeah.
either. That's so funny.
He said, I must own I felt a little proud when my captain offered me the second dignity in the vessel and entreated me to remain with the greatest earnestness. So valuable did he consider my services. So he's like, not only did I hire myself and try to fire myself, but then the captain actually came to me and said, no, I want you to stay because your services are so great. Like, I just don't believe him. He's, to me, unreliable narrator.
To me, it gets the energy of like when they do Undercover Boss and like everybody figures out that it's the boss.
Yeah.
They start like really nicely talking, you know?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, like they see this guy and they're like, oh, you're rich and unguided. We're going to be super nice to you to try and get some of your money.
Like, did you ever see that episode, like the clips from Undercover Boss where the guy who worked at like a packaging company and he was so slow he got fired on his first day and then he like lost his shit?
No.
No.
So now we are on letter 2.
Letter 2.
So
Letter 2.
this one was
I
written
wanted to say it.
March 17th.
Wait, mine says March 28th for letter 2.
What?
Yeah, letter 2 to Miss Seville, England. Archangel, March 28th, 17, and then dash. There are no years on these letters for me. It just
Yeah,
says 17.
mine
Hold
either.
up, I have to confirm mine. Mine is March 20.
My
My
Do
no,
you have an
mine is
extra letter?
Archangel 28th March. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
I'm dyslexic. Okay, hold on. Let me fix my notes. One moment. Okay, that'd be crazy if that was like the change, you know?
Yeah, I'm like, the dates of the letter matter? Like, this is crazy.
Hey, whoopsie whoopsie. Okay. We're back in. So, letter 2, March 28th. He's complaining that he has no friends.
I
Even
have
though
it
he-
double underlined. I have no friends. Like, I love it.
My favorite thing is he's like, I hired all these men to work with
Mhm.
me, and none of them want to be my friends. And I'm like, imagine being like homeboys with your boss, you know?
He literally goes, I'm occupied collecting my sailors. And I was like, hell yeah, you get a crew going. Round
As
up
you
all
should.
those boys. Yeah. I hope they're cute and they wear cute little sailor hats for you.
I was picturing the village people, you know?
Yeah, me too. Especially when it goes a little further down and he goes, I desire the company of a man who could sympathize with me, whose eyes would reply to mine. I'm like, oh, that's romantic. I feel like that's really juicy stuff.
Yeah, and you're telling me he wasn't successful as a poet?
Yeah, wait a minute. You're throwing
Truly.
stuff out like
Yeah.
whose eyes would reply to mine. Like, damn.
Never mind. I take it back.
I know I kind of hate this guy, but the more I actually like read what I've underlined and what I've highlighted, I'm like, no, wait a minute. Maybe I don't blame you. Maybe if I was rich, I would just, fuck off and do whatever I wanted to. Like,
Maybe I would just hire hot men to be on my side.
yeah. Exactly. That's
He's
exactly
just
right.
a sad boy looking for a friend.
My favorite thing is he specifically is like, I hire every one of these men because they're really nice.
Yeah.
This guy, he's like, this guy who's not the smartest, but he's really kind. You know, he tried to marry this woman and then she actually had a secret lover and he gave her all of his money. He gave her all of his money and gave her his home. So now he's back on the boat. I'm like, bro, what?
Yeah, I highlighted all of that and just said, oh, he loves gossip. Like,
Yeah.
this is gossip he heard from a crew member that he's now retelling to his sister. And I'm like, oh, yeah, you couldn't let that sit within you. You had to tell somebody else. That's a gossip.
Listen, my siblings, the second I hear something juicy, phone in my hand, you know?
Really? See, I don't have that relationship with my sister.
Oh, my
Mm-mm.
siblings and I are like very, very tight knit. Like my sister has like this thing she started called immunity necklace where you can't like judge whatever she says or like whatever me or my other siblings say. So they'll be like, immunity necklace? I think that blah 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 looks like blah 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 blah. You know what I mean? Like it'll just be like the most outlandish shit you've ever heard in your entire life. You know?
Yeah.
My favorite.
Love that. Yeah. No, he was absolutely just talking trash to his sister. And I think that's kind of how I felt when I read Pride and Prejudice, where I'm like, oh, these people are just gossiping. This whole book is gossip. And now him retelling it, I'm like, would I have thrived in the 1800s when it was just hearsay? When it was all rumor, there were no facts, there was no internet to like fact check or back you up, and it's just hearsay? I would love it.
Gossiping, going to balls, and staying at your friend's house.
Yep.
All I want.
All I want. It's all I want.
Not being allowed to work, you know?
I do have 2 notes on here though. Whoever's writing these letters, he does have a name. I think he's a soft boy, Robert Walton. We from Arkansas, I am familiar with the Waltons. He talks about how the master of the ship he hired is like known for his gentleness and mildness of his discipline, because he goes, I cannot overcome an intense distaste to the usual brutality exercised on board a ship. I'm like, oh, you're just a soft boy. You just want everyone to get along, everyone to love each other. And then 2 other times right after that, in letter 2, and I think at the beginning of letter 3, he talks about how he's not doing anything rashly, and all his decisions must confide in his prudence and consideration whenever the safety of others is committed to his care. So I'm like, okay, are you illiterate? Yes. Should you have stayed being a poet? Yes. But do you care about the safety of your crew? Yeah, that's cool, you know? Like, you gotta give him a little credit.
And then he ends this letter by saying, remember me with affection should you never hear from me again.
And he's like, again, I may not come back. I feel like he almost wants to die. Like, he talks about wanting the glory, wanting all this. I think he wants to die just so he has, like, some legacy or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Also, he's 28. Flame. Yeah.
Rachel, during these letters, this is your introduction into Frankenstein. Were you like, what the heck is going on and who are these people?
I fully thought I was going to have a Dracula moment while I was reading these letters. I was like, oh God, like, what did I get myself into? Like, I don't love letters or diary entries, those kinds of things, as like my medium of storytelling, because it makes the narrator even more unreliable. You know what I mean?
But I almost like that more because I'm like, yes, give me your perspective. What do you think is happening? Because I'm going to think about what's happening in my perspective always. But if I could read your diary, let me read it. If I could read your private letters, let me read it. Like, I want the juicy details, you know?
The thing I don't like about it is I feel like it rushes the story in a way, you know? Like, because we don't get play-by-plays anymore.
That's valid.
Yeah, that's true.
I do like when they throw a letter in. That's fun. Or, like, the thing I like modernly, I kind of like when they throw the text thread in. I think that's kind of fun.
I like that, too.
I used to hate that, and now I feel like I've read enough books with it where I'm like, okay, it's fine. But
Yeah. I will say Pride and Prejudice did a fantastic job of, like, the play-by-play, and then, oh my gosh, the mail's been delivered. We open up the letter, we read the letter together, and then we continue on with the play-by-play. I did like that in Pride and Prejudice.
Yeah. That's how I like it.
Becca, you need to read Persuasion.
I do. It's on the list.
I think you'd really like that.
It's all on the list.
You'd like that one, I think.
Nice. Instead, I'm reading The Hobbit for like the 5th time right now.
There's a lot of pining in Persuasion.
Ooh, I love a yearn. I love an unrequited love. I love sexual attention. I just want...
Check. You got to read that one.
All right, Persuasion's up next for me.
It's decided.
Which letter?
I'm trying to remember. Did I read Persuasion?
I don't think you've read it yet, Rachel, but it's good. Honestly, it's one of the most
supposed to read that with
underrated
Cheryl.
ones.
Aunt Cheryl.
You're
I'm
learning
sure
about
that was a show.
everybody.
Yeah.
No, yeah, you were supposed to do it.
Isn't it really long?
No, it's short. It's like,
Is
I
it?
got
like 300
like
pages
right
maybe?
here.
I don't know. Rachel will confirm.
Right at how many pages?
Like 300 maybe?
Oh, it's beautiful. Is yours still
Thank you.
wrapped up or is it just shiny?
It's got like a cover thing. It's
A
part of
dust
the
jacket.
seasons collection,
That's
but it's like
stunning.
this is like actually indented.
I have not seen that
Wow.
one. That one's so pretty.
Yeah.
What the heck?
That's
You
gorgeous.
purchased this copy and did not show me?
Wow.
I swear I thought I sent you a picture, but also like if you can see right here, look, it's
Yeah, the
ladies.
ladies.
Yeah.
Very cute. Yeah, that's not a big book at all.
But there's
What?
like 4 of these in the seasons collection, and I just need them all, honestly.
Gotta catch them all.
Yeah, I gotta get them all.
I think that
Also,
is such a good book, and it's a little
look
underrated.
at these like collector's editions I got.
Ooh.
Those are cool. What are those?
I can't read the sign.
This is Walden by Henry David Thoreau, The Way of the Flesh by Samuel Butler, and A Tale of Two Cities.
All very upbeat, positive reads right there.
And chaotically, my copy of Princess Bride is on the classic literature shelf because it fit perfectly. So
Love that.
yeah, as it should, honestly.
Rachel, I took your advice and did return that copy of Frankenstein that had the little scuff on the. Yeah, I just couldn't do it.
Especially when you're gonna have like 4 of them now.
Yeah.
So.
I'm excited to reread a confirmed 1818 version at some point.
Me too. Me too.
I think that
Because I feel like I'm missing out on like a. And the reason I liked this book so much is because I thought, wow, that was way juicier than I thought a classic ever could be. And now that I'm hearing that there's a juicier version of it, oh my god, I gotta get my mitts on it.
Mine must have been an abridged version because this is drastically more detailed. Like I need you to see some of these paragraphs, like how chunky they are.
Oh yeah, mine are thick paragraphs, but short. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But short
Yeah.
chapters, which I really like a short chapter.
Me too.
Yeah, me too.
I feel like this book is such an accessible classic. It's not that overwhelming.
Yeah.
It's pretty short. It's pretty easy to understand.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it would be a good like intro into classics, one of your first classics to read, because you kind of
That's how it's been for me.
Kind of know the
Yeah.
gist. Yeah.
I feel like this
And
and
again,
Great
the
Gatsby.
audiobook. Yeah, The Great Gatsby is a good one. But again, the audiobook of this really helped because just their pronunciation and the way they emphasize words is so much different, and it's hard to get that in the writing.
Mhm.
And like punctuation is so different in this writing too, which that's important to me. I feel like punctuation is key. And it can be hard to read. So the audiobook really helps me with that.
Yeah, I'm thinking I must have been reading the 31 version because as soon as we get to chapter 3 and 4, completely different.
Really?
Different.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh my god, let's get there. Let's get
All
there.
right. Letter 3, I have a singular note. Letter 3 was written July 7th. My one note is really jinxed it on the, oh, there's no problems. Nothing bad has happened at all. That's all that really happens in letter 3.
Yikes. I have one highlight in letter 3, and it's like one of the last sentences he writes. He goes, "What can stop the determined heart and resolved will of man?" And I thought, boy, if that's not foreshadowing right there, I don't know what is. That's crazy. What can stop the determined heart? Like that is so on point for Frankenstein and what we all know he does.
Yeah.
But I loved it.
Let me before I even commit to this, let me make sure that I actually got to chapter 4 of
I only got
Frankenstein.
through chapter 3 today, so
I will tell you, Rachel,
Which
we don't
that.
have to spend a ton of time on these letters.
No, yeah, that's another thing is when I was rereading this book, I forgot the letters existed. They unless I forgot the ending completely, they don't really become relevant all that much again.
Yeah.
Um,
I just looked. My version's, completely different. I did finish through chapter 3, and what happens in chapter 3, this book did not happen in my version.
oh my god, I'm so excited. Okay, letter 4. Let's get there.
Okay. August 17th, they're surrounded by icebergs, giant fog. In the distance, they see a very large man drawn by dogs, and they're like, that's weird. That's strange. So they can't.
Sorry, I made a note right there. Oh, never mind. I'm ahead of myself. Go ahead.
You're fine. So basically, they are encapsulated by the ice. They cannot move. So they're just kind of chilling and hanging out. And then by nighttime, they're finally able to like free the ship. And he's like, all right, well, I'm going to go to sleep then, because what else is he going to do when they're finally free and could actually potentially move besides go to sleep? Um, so he goes to bed. The next morning, all of the sailors are gathered on the side of the boat and they're like talking to somebody. And he's like, that's weird. So he goes over there and there's a random guy who's just stuck out on the ice with one dog left and his sled, which they call a sledge, which makes me laugh every single time.
Wait, but they're different. They're different, aren't they? Because
I don't know.
I feel
a sled and a sledge.
I feel like we looked this up with Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. I feel like a sledge is kind of like a chariot. It's not.
I don't know. I'm looking.
I'm not sure it's super important in this context.
Okay, it's not, sledge implies a heavier sled used for moving freight or massive objects.
I stand corrected.
Okay,
but we have looked this up before because I remember thinking like they spelled sled wrong, and it's like no, I just don't know what that means.
I just didn't know there was a difference. I didn't know there was a difference either. I just went for it.
Now we know.
I did highlight though when they found him. The author of the letters goes, he was not, as the other travelers seemed to be, a savage inhabitant of some undiscovered island, but a European. And I'm like, oh, racist. Right there.
There's a note in the back of my books called a section called How to Read, and like one of the options is sex or racism. Like, okay.
Yeah. I think there's.
I mean, yeah, it's a classic. You know,
how can there not be?
Classics always have a little dash of racism.
You know that audio where it's a cow farm. There's gonna be cows outside.
That's
yeah. So before bringing the random dude onto the ship, he's like, "Where are you guys going?" And I'm like, "Do you really have? Can you really ask?" Honestly, like, do you have that in your soul to be able to like?
Does it matter where they're going? Yeah, there's not going to be another ship coming by to save you, sir. Like, it just makes no sense.
It's like, I'll get the next one.
He goes, before I come on your vessel, will you have the kindness to inform me where you're going? And I'm like, where are you going, sir? Like,
yeah, exactly. I'm like, we're literally saving your life. Just get on, you know?
Yeah.
So as soon as he gets on, he immediately passes out, which is so funny to me because I'm like, you're just putting up like a whole hissy fit of like, where's our location, you know? And now you're like, you know?
I will say this is kind of a reoccurring theme that when shit hits the fan, they'll just like take a nap or something.
Yeah.
It happens more than once.
Yeah.
I don't blame him. Honestly, same.
He's got some strong avoidance behaviors, you know?
Yeah. I'm just going to be unconscious instead of deal with this.
Just like a running joke of like, why is it every time that you see a ghost, you decide to roll over and go back to sleep?
It's pretty much that. You'll see.
Yeah.
It's just a reoccurring theme that I'm noticing this time around.
Oh, I highlighted a lot in this letter. Sorry.
It's fine. He decides to bring the man to his cabin, mostly because I think he finds her hot. Sorry. I was... a text message from my boyfriend came through at the same time, and it's right above the sentence I was reading. So I like glanced at it and read at the same time. So finds him hot, iconically. So he wakes up a little bit, and he's like, "I seek the one who's fled from me." Like,
the demon who's fled from me. Is what he calls him. Yeah.
Well, actually, in mine, it says, I seek him who has fled from me, is basically what it says. And then he goes,
mine says
a
one,
daemon. Yeah. Daemon. I'm like, ooh, bring back that old spelling.
Yeah, mine's spelled like that too. That's crazy.
My original one isn't. It's spelled demon.
It's like them calling it Sorcerer's Stone instead of Philosopher's Stone. They thought you wouldn't be able to understand it.
Literally. So Robert's like, basically, the stranger keeps trying to get up and like go sit on the deck. And Robert's like, we're not doing that. You're like literally about to die. Just lay down. You'll be fine. I'll have someone. Their entire job now is watching for your person.
Yep. I have all that highlighted too. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
I will say one line I highlighted at the start of that. He goes, from this time, a new spirit of life animated the decaying frame of the stranger. And again, foreshadowing. We know what he does. We know why he looks like he's decaying. Like, I like how many references they make to bringing life into a decaying body. Like, that's the second time, and we're only on the fourth letter.
Yeah, we are not even in the chapters yet.
Yeah, we haven't even gotten there, and there's so many references to bringing life into a dead body. Yeah. I'm just saying.
So then the letter restarts again on August 13th. He's talking about basically how much he loves and is obsessed with the stranger and how his affections grow every day. And I'm like, ooh.
He's down bad.
Yeah, down bad. I have all that. Yeah. But then right after that, when he's talking about how into this man he is, wait, who's speaking right here? There's a line that goes, "Unhappy man, do you share my madness? Have you drunk also of the intoxicating draft? I don't know what that word is. Hear me, let me reveal my tale, and you will dash the cut from your lips." Oh, so that's when Frankenstein is being like, don't be in love with me and all the things I've done. I'm going to warn you of how your ambition is going to go downhill.
Yeah. I know.
But I'm like, damn, Dr. Frankenstein, can't you just have a boat boyfriend? Like,
literally.
It's too complicated for me right now. You don't want to get involved with me. I'm a mess.
Every relationship just ends in failure. I don't know why. Maybe just me. I don't know.
But yeah, the Walton guy goes, "I spoke of my desire of finding a friend, of my thirst for a more intimate sympathy with a fellow mind than had ever fallen to my lot." And I'm like, oh, so you're telling Frankenstein that you're into him. Like, fully open about it.
Yeah. He's like, you're exactly my type, actually. Hope that's cool. Hope that's chill.
But then it starts again on the 19th.
Yep. And the stranger's like, you know what? For you, my boat, Jesus Christ. My boat boyfriend, I am going to share my story of love and loss. Mostly loss and mad scientist endeavors. And then Robert, the real G, is like, and for you, sister, I will write down the hottest goss of this century.
The whole book is gossip. The whole book. I love it.
My only highlight for this letter is, will you laugh at the enthusiasm I express concerning this divine wanderer? And I just wrote, they are in love.
They're mooching. They're macking. They are into each other.
Macking in the captain's quarters.
I'm imagining the sister reading these letters being like, he rescued this stranger 4 days ago, according to his letters, and they're already like macking. Like, what is my brother into? Like, what is he doing with our family's fortune right now?
I wish so badly we got a little bit more closure on who these people are and what he was doing out there, which we may, and I may have just completely forgotten it. But I would have died for the sister's perspective of her writing a letter to somebody else talking about her gay brother who's just out gallivanting around, like, just flamboyantly with all of his sailor bros and everything like that. Like, I wish so badly we could see somebody else's perspective of this author.
I just imagining the sister being like, yeah, and then my brother like got a boyfriend from that he literally found in the ocean. Like, I don't understand really, but like apparently he was just like on an iceberg chasing around his ex-boyfriend, and my brother thought that was the perfect man for him. I really don't know. I don't know. That's
I like
the story.
The brother's like, you wouldn't know him. He goes to a different school. Like, you wouldn't know. I found him in the Arctic. Like, what?
I don't know. Every time I thought about this ship, I just thought of the Village People in the Navy song.
Yeah.
It's like a constant party.
Yeah. The gay vibes start off strong, and they just get stronger. They get so much stronger. Oh, I'm excited.
So then we are on to chapter 1.
Here we go.
we find out this stranger is a fancy rich kid from a noble family. I feel like we already kind of immediately knew that, but it's fine. So his father didn't immediately marry until he was quite old because he apparently spent his younger years working for the country. So, politician. Oof.
Yuck.
Yeah. So the dad had a friend who, through several misfortunes, became poor and moved away. And the dad tried to find him again so that he could help.
So he could
And
sugar daddy him, essentially.
literally,
He said,
you know,
persuading him to begin the world again through his dad's credit and assistance. Crazy.
his dad just wanted his boyfriend back. That's what I'm.
Generations of gay men in this book. Generations.
The beers are the wives we found along the way. You
Yeah.
know?
Jeez. They're poor wives.
So, literally. It took his dad 10 months to find him, which basically is like, yeah, he did not want to be found at all, but whatever. So when he finds his friend finally, he finds him on his sick bed. And the daughter, in this version, Caroline got a job so that they would stay out of the negative, which did not happen in my version. Caroline just basically watched her dad die in my version.
Really? This version, she
Yeah.
gets jobs. It says she gets like pretty basic jobs, like baling hay and stuff.
Yeah.
But
Not
then
my version.
when her dad got super sick, that's when she stopped working, and then they were like out of money. That's crazy. They just like cut out Caroline's career.
Yeah.
Mine has her
I'm
working.
like, so now,
Yeah.
yeah.
Was
Caroline was not an
plaiting
independent
straw.
woman in mine.
She was just braiding some straw.
Yeah, that's what happened in mine.
Mm-hmm.
So then after after Caroline's dad dies, aka his dad's friend, he puts Frankenstein's dad puts Caroline with a relation for 2 years, and then presumably as soon as she turns 18, marries her.
Ew.
Yep.
When I was reading this, I highlighted the part where the 2 years after this event, Caroline became his wife, and I was like, "Excuse me, what?"
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It just gets weirder.
But it's kind of crazy because it's like, why did he marry Caroline? Because he goes looking for his friend in the hopes to like financially support him, get him back into their society. It wasn't like he loved Caroline and was out looking for his friend to help his friend and get Caroline. It's like he went to help his friend died. Did he marry Caroline to support her and like fulfill the promise he didn't actually make to his friend, or did he fall in love with her? Like did we get an answer to that?
I think it's more so for financial protection and safety, because otherwise she has nothing.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
It kind of seems that he just immediately needed a wife because he's like, all right, I'm up in age and you're the only girl I know.
You don't have any parents looking out for you. I'll take her.
The women in this book are not very complex.
So bad.
Yeah.
The women in this book are so poorly thought out and like given absolutely zero hope in their futures. And I'm like, Mary Shelley, you're writing these women. You are a woman. When I read this, I thought Mary Shelley was a man. Really and truly. Just one of those like old guys with a lady's name, the way they used to. Like Mackenzie or something.
So the funny thing is, in the other version, so I guess we'll get into it in a second. Actually, I'll hold my thoughts because I have a couple thoughts about the mom in a second. Okay, well, actually, it's after this next note. So when the narrator's 4, his family takes in his cousin Elizabeth after his aunt died, and the uncle was like, "Hey, I want to get remarried, so take my kid, or she's going to some rando." I'm like, "Oh, okay. What the fuck?" But my note here is, in my version, like his mom was doing all this like charity work, and like that was like a big part of her personality, and that's how she finds Caroline in whatever year my book was originally. And now it's like we lose that because Caroline is just his cousin, and now his mom has no personality.
That's crazy. Because like in my version of the book, she's doing all this charity work. They're going around to different like hovels in the village to help people out. And they talk about they go into this one that looked extra bad. And he goes, there were 4 other dark-eyed, hardy little vagrants in there. But this child was thin and very fair. Her hair was the brightest living gold despite the poverty of her clothing. It seemed to set a crown of distinction on her head. And she had blue eyes. And I'm like, oh, so you found a white woman, blonde hair, blue eye, and you thought that's the one that deserves saving. None of the dark-haired little vagrants. Racism.
Yeah.
It's right there again.
It's either racism or something a little incestual with...
Yeah.
Those are your only options. Mine, so your version, Rachel, we're talking about Elizabeth, correct? Of how they find Elizabeth? And my version is that the father's sister marries early in life an Italian. And he, I don't know if he just like is a deadbeat or if she just dies. It's kind of confusing.
In mine, the aunt dies.
The aunt dies, but they make it kind of sound like the father's not involved.
Yeah.
See, in my version, she has no relation to anybody. Caroline asks the peasant woman who's overlooking Elizabeth who she is, and the peasant woman just says she's not my child, but the daughter of a Milanese nobleman. Her mother was a German and had died giving birth, and the infant had been placed with us to nurse when we were better off. So, like, 0 ties. No incest whatsoever.
No, when I read this, I'm like, oh, so it's his cousin. Nice.
Yeah.
First cousin.
Yep. This one is literally cousin. But yeah, my other version is the same thing you had where it's just some random kid. But at least, like, that... Well, while there's racism and it's also not great, at least it gives the mother something to, like, of substance, you know? She's got a hobby. This one, the mom is like mentioned for the fact that like she gave birth to him, and that's about it.
And that she wants him to marry his cousin.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah. It's just crazy how he's 4 years old and they find this little girl, whether she's related or not, and she's like, you're gonna marry her.
Perfect.
That's the one for you.
You're a boy, you're a girl.
And you're both white. It's perfect.
Yeah. Exactly what happens to this too is that like he's like, oh, and this will be your future wife, your cousin.
And then he becomes so obsessed with her right off the bat. He immediately goes, it would be unfair to her to keep her in poverty and want. And so they took her, Elizabeth Lavinza. What a beautiful name. And then he goes, she was more than my sister, the beautiful and adored companion of all my occupations and my pleasures. That's crazy.
It's also weird that he refers to her as his sister because they're like raised together as siblings, and yet they're already betrothed.
And it's messed up that Caroline goes, I have a pretty present for my Victor. And then the next day, Elizabeth shows up, and Victor goes, Elizabeth is mine to protect, love, and cherish. All praises bestowed on her I received as made to a possession of my own. Like,
mine does not have that.
Human trafficking. Oh, it doesn't? Oh, it's like the last paragraph of this.
My old version had that, and I was looking for it, and this one does not have it.
No, I do.
Yeah,
I do not have
he goes, we called each other. Yeah, I thought it was, literally I annotated ew next to her being called a pretty present, because that's gross. And he goes, we called each other familiarly by the name of cousin. No word, no expression could body forth the kind of relation in which she stood to me, my more than sister, since till death she was mine to be only. No, since till death she was to be only mine. I got a little dyslexic there.
So it's either human trafficking version or incestual version. Which one do you want to read?
Yep.
Ooh. Yeah. The relationship between him and Elizabeth is a lot creepier in the previous version I read.
Yikes. Okay, well, I'm glad I'm reading this version, but yikes.
See, Becca, that's why when we did this for book club, I'm like, how did we miss that detail?
Yeah, it's because I didn't read it. I didn't know.
But I did, and I feel like we talked about it, but maybe I just didn't mention they were directly cousins.
Yeah, I remember talking about how I thought it was weird that they called her cousin, that they called her sister, that they called her his future wife. I'm like, you could just pick one, you know, like they're not all good, but you could just pick one. But yeah, mine never once conveyed the fact that they were actually first cousins.
Yep. Yikes.
Ooh.
How many versions of this are there? You know?
No,
Like,
No
I
idea.
kinda-
No
I'm gonna
idea.
look it up in the background here while we
yeah.
continue.
Because, like, even mine and yours, Becca, seem
Mhm.
pretty similar, but I've already noticed that they've already divulged. So we didn't
Yeah.
read the same version. I have no idea.
This freaks me out because I really, really like this book, and I'm worried, what if I just liked one version and I can't figure out what that version is because it's the audiobook that doesn't say? Then what? Then what?
Then what? Yeah, literally. I know.
I will say, sorry, go ahead.
I like it. So far the two versions I've read, I've liked them for different reasons.
Yeah. The audiobook I listened to on Libby, unlimited loans. So anybody can listen to it, which is good.
There are
Nice.
5 significant revisions, according to Google.
Oh my god. So between us, we've got at least 4 of them.
I mean, we know that the story gist is the same because we've discussed this in somewhat detail to at least have the same story in mind previously. I mean,
at least so far.
so far, starting to question everything.
It all
here.
goes.
I would really
yeah, it
like
all
to
goes
know
downhill.
what version this is. So far, Rachel, mine's lining up with yours.
Yeah.
So
we'll keep it posted, I guess.
yeah, I'm hoping. We'll see. Okay,
We'll see.
carry on.
Are we on chapter 2?
We haven't even talked about Henry.
Yeah, we're still
Wait, Henry comes up in chapter 2.
not in this one.
No!
Yeah.
No! Oh no, so our chapters are completely different. Oh no. Yeah, Henry gets introduced in chapter 2 for me.
Oh,
this is
no.
a problem.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Look how many of my notes I have left. We're still not even at chapter 2.
Son of a bitch. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
So we find out my literal next note. We find out our narrator has one friend, Henry, Clerval.
Clerval. His name in the audiobook is Henri Clerval, and I love it. Love it.
Bougie.
Gay.
Very gay. Love it.
Sounds very sensual. Henri Clerval.
Beautiful.
You know that he like feels like a fancy rich boy. Like you meet him at a club. He's got wine in his hand.
Curly blonde hair. Yeah. Like I can picture him.
He's like leaning on the bar and he's like talking to Victor for the first time. He's like, "Yeah, my name is Henri Clerval." You know, like
and Victor's just a scrawny little nerdy guy. Yeah.
I have to tell you, I had a hard time not picturing Victor from Frankenweenie during. Whenever I think about it, I'm like really trying to get that out of my head.
Victor. Love that.
We do get the very important note that Caroline has gotten very into drawing. I don't know why it was noted so much, but it was like very important.
I didn't get that.
Ooh, I did
not have that whatsoever. They did not bring up Caroline whatsoever. They just talked about how they just went around gallivanting.
Oh,
and
then
this one is like
I do have that note.
And then she had her second son, and that's when they stopped traveling so much and became sedentary, and they lived somewhere in considerable seclusion.
No real gallivanting in mine.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not mine either. I don't remember them traveling.
Who are these people? This is crazy. But like, why are these the changes being made? Like, these are not important changes. To me, it just makes it seem like his parents are out traveling instead of taking care of him, so maybe he's lonely. But then he talks about how great of a childhood he had. So I don't know.
We do get an important note that Henry has become essentially an adopted brother because he's an only child, which I don't think was noted in my version.
That's not my version. Who are these people? I hate this. Mine does say that Henry loved to read books about chivalry and romance. And I said, all right,
I don't get that in this version.
In my version, they talk about how Henry had written a fairy tale as a child and it captivated other friends or whatever.
Yeah, he wrote a tale of enchantment and knightly adventure, and he tried to make them act plays and enter into masquerades of all of his characters.
Okay, mine does
So
not have Henry.
He was a theater kid.
Mine does not have Henry as an orphan.
Mine doesn't either.
No, an only child.
Oh, okay.
Not
I'm
an orphan.
sorry. I thought you said orphan.
Mine says nothing about his family. He says he was the son of a merchant in Geneva, and that is it.
A little bit later in our version, I don't know if we have the same one, Rachel, but it says, for being an only child and destitute of companions at home, his father was well pleased that he should find associates at our house. Yeah, we were never completely happy when Clerval was absent.
Interesting. I have a note later on that I'm excited to talk about to that point.
This is like my insert note to this, and I'm just gonna read it verbatim as what I wrote. Like anyone going through therapy, he finds out all of his problems started in childhood.
Yes, yeah. But mine goes, no human being could have passed a happier childhood than myself, and talks about how good it was. And then out of nowhere, he goes, my temper was sometimes violent and my passion vehement.
Yeah, he doesn't talk about being violent in mine.
I will say it's funny, anytime he's talking about anything, he always, anytime it sounds too positive, he's like, but wait, it gets worse.
Yes, yeah. Anytime things are looking good for him, he's like, no, don't let me fool you.
Don't get it twisted. Yeah. I'm tortured.
Don't get it twisted. My life sucks.
Very, very emo. Like, if you've ever played Stardew Valley, feels like a little bit Sebastian, you know?
Yeah, yeah. That's funny, yeah.
So, then he decides to talk about how when they were on a trip, he found the works of Cornelius Agrippa, who's into natural philosophy, essentially, for anybody out there that doesn't know what that means, code for alchemy. And his dad called it sad trash. And he's like, now, not to say it's entirely my dad's fault, but what he should have said is explain to me that we've made marvelous improvements, and he should have specifically told me that. However, he made it sound like he didn't know what he was talking about, in which I did not trust my father, and I assumed he was just stupid. And I was like, bro.
Yeah. I died when I read his dad called it sad trash, because I've read some sad trash books, and I'm like, oh, I get it. And then he was like, my dad didn't really seem to know a whole lot.
It sounded like fake barking.
Yeah, well, he's like muttering in his crate. He's locked up right now. And he's like, I know you can hear me.
That's Neville.
Hate it. But then he like clung so strongly to the shitty books. Like, that was the worst part.
And then he's like, now I decided I'm going to hunt for the Philosopher's Stone and also the Elixir of Life. So then he also, his other citing for his downfall in his childhood is he's like, I once saw lightning hit a tree and it shattered, and that was a pivotal moment for me.
And that whoever they were with saw it and was like, oh, I know about electricity and galvanization or whatever. And Victor was like, I'm going to stick with my sad trash books. Like, I'm not going to learn more from you, sir.
Yeah.
So I don't think the lightning strike happened here, but it did.
And now I'm getting confused between the two versions of like what's happened, what didn't, you know?
Yeah. Oh, I did love that when he was talking to his dad's friend about the lightning strike and the electricity and galvanism, he goes, this was astonishing and brand new to me. It threw everything that he had just read out of the window. And he goes, it seemed to me as if nothing would or could ever be known. And I said, yes, give up. Like, that's exactly the second something questions what you know, give up. Absolutely.
My next favorite note is his dad tried to get him in a science class. He's like, oh, my son's interested in science. Let me put him in a science class. And because like through random misfortunes, he could not make it to the end of the semester, and he couldn't understand anything because he literally joined like the last week of school. He's like, and he gave up.
This does not happen in my book. He went to a science class?
He did.
Yeah.
And he gave up?
Yeah, like a community college science class, which my favorite thing is my mom always would recommend that I should do that. Like, I guess before you had to get like accepted into universities and like stick there, you could just take community science
Mhm.
classes, and she would always tell me if I like couldn't pass a class to just take it at the community college and then
Yeah.
like transfer the credit over. And I'm like, you can't do that anymore. Like, you can't just take the random one.
I wish you could so bad, though. I would absolutely
Mhm.
do that. Wow, I can't believe I missed out that he went to a science class and failed.
Yes, it says
No,
my father expressed a wish that I should attend a course of lectures upon natural philosophy, to which I cheerfully consented. Some accident prevented my attending these lectures until the course was nearly finished.
Some accident. They didn't even say what happened.
No.
That's why it was edited out of mine. They were like, she's not going to like it anyway.
He's like, and for some reason I was pretty confused in class.
Wow, I'm so sad. He just gets really I don't want to say poetic, but he really turns inward and looks within himself, and he's like, everything I thought I knew about science is false. And he goes, when I look back, it seems to me as if this almost miraculous change of inclination and will was the immediate suggestion of the guardian angel of my life, the last effort made by the spirit of preservation to avert the storm that was even then hanging in the stars. So he was like, me dropping all of my sad trash science books was like my guardian angel protecting me from what it knew was gonna come.
Mm-hmm.
Did that happen in
I'm
y'all's?
looking.
Nope.
Damn. I love that. I was like, wow, that's really, looking inwards. What,
I have to say though, I'm gonna
And
start
mine-
saying sad trash a lot more often.
Me too.
Mm-hmm. And mine
And then
very
he-
specifically.
sorry. He goes on, and this is the last line of my chapter 2. He goes, destiny was too potent, and her immutable laws had decreed my utter and terrible destruction. Like, that's so good. That's so good. Because lightning struck a tree, you found out everything you knew was wrong, and now destiny has ruined your life. And that's the reason you go do all the terrible things you end up doing? Interesting. Love it. Foreshadowing. English teacher, check.
Is that your chapter 2 that you're
That
on?
was my chapter 2. Yeah, now I'm on to chapter 3, which makes me really worried.
Chapter 1.
Okay, well now I don't feel bad for not getting through chapter 4.
Yeah.
Because they're clearly different.
Chapter 1 ends with him saying that he was teaching his younger brothers, including Ernest, who is 6 years younger than him, and William, who is an infant. And I'm like, sir, how are you teaching an infant?
I don't think he ever once mentions his brother's name. I think he mentions that he has 2 brothers one time and it's done.
Ooh, these versions are a lot more
crazy
different than I had.
I'm glad we're doing this, all different versions, so we can see everything.
It's very fun.
Damn, okay, so y'all are chapter 1. I'm on chapter 3.
Yeah, I'm on chapter 2 now.
Now we're on chapter 2, yeah.
What's the start of your chapter 2?
He goes to English.
He's going off to college.
Baby. Okay, that's where we are in chapter 3. We're all synced up. Love it.
Yep.
Yeah, he's 17 and he's about to go off to college. And then Elizabeth gets sick and then Caroline gets sick.
Yeah.
Correct.
Is that where y'all are? Nice.
Yep. So, his mother can't stay away because Elizabeth got scarlet fever.
In my version, his mother says Elizabeth is her favorite, and that's why she refuses to stay away.
I don't think she says that it's her favorite.
Really?
But, she's like,
oh no,
or something.
Mine says it's her favorite. That she is her favorite because she said she had at first yielded to our entreaties, but when she had heard that her favorite was recovering, she could no longer debar herself from her society and entered her chamber long before the danger of infection was past.
Maybe
wow, my sentence starts the same and then goes a different route before the end of the sentence. Mine goes, she had at first yielded to our entreaties, but when she heard that the life of her favorite was menaced, she could no longer control her anxiety.
Oh.
Interesting.
I'm starting to think this is actually the 1818 version. Based on what you're saying, Rachel. And
yeah.
Interesting. Mine also, I love the start of this because this is the start of my chapter 3, and it starts with, before the day resolved upon could arrive, the first misfortune of my life occurred, an omen, as it were, of my future misery. And I just love that all he cares about in retelling the story was about how miserable he was. Every ounce of it. He's like, it was about to get bad. It's about to get worse.
I know, he's constantly noting but this is just the beginning. Just you wait.
This is just the start.
It gets me every time.
My life is awful.
I promise. It's ugly.
You'll never know how terrible.
You'll never be able to look at me again. I am sad trash.
I love that. But then his mother on her deathbed goes, my firmest hopes of future happiness when I'm gone is placed on the prospect of your union. Elizabeth, my love, you must supply my place to my younger children. So she's dying and says, Elizabeth, you have to marry your brother and you need to take care of all of your little siblings. I know we human trafficked you. I know this is incest, but now you have to be the mom. Like, poor Elizabeth. Like, what if Elizabeth wanted to go to school? Maybe she doesn't want to be a mom to all of her incest siblings. I don't know.
Elizabeth is just like, okay.
Elizabeth's just like, I'm blonde and blue-eyed. I don't care.
She has no personality.
No personality. And I'm like, girl, you were stolen. Like, she's got the misfortunes. This whole book should be about Elizabeth, honestly.
Literally.
I want this book
we don't
from
get to
her
know a single
perspective.
thing about Elizabeth.
Yeah, we don't know anything about her except for she liked to draw and she's betrothed.
I have so many spoilers about Elizabeth, y'all. It's so hard. It's so hard.
She is
So
I want another revision.
Yeah, Elizabeth's POV.
Yes, I think that'd be so funny. There's gotta be a version. I mean,
at this point, I might try and buy or at least attain a copy of each. So I want to do a blog post of like what the difference is in each version, like table by table.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm curious.
And then just go line by line.
Like a 5-version tandem read to figure out where it's different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, just like, I feel like it scratched my brain the right way. And I haven't seen that anybody's done it yet. So, at some point when I deep dive into research, that's going to be what I do. So
absolutely. I fully support that.
Yeah.
Fully support.
I second the notion.
Okay, I don't know if this is where you guys are, but when his mom dies, he starts going into his whole exploration of death and what it does to a person's soul. And he calls it the void that presents itself to the soul. And he talks about like the early days of grief. He says, these are the reflections of the first days. But when the lapse of time proves the reality of the evil, then the actual bitterness of grief commences. So he's saying like the longer he sat with her death, the more the grief of death sat with him. And so then I made a note of, does his mom's death, even though he talks about all of his like sad, whatever, childhood, adolescence, with like his sad trash books, then I'm like, does his mom's death set into motion his obsession with death? Because that's what it is. And I feel like that's what leads him to.
In our version, when he's reading about natural philosophy, that's like the initial spark. There is some foreshadowing of being obsessed with the idea of what gives life.
Okay. He gets to that when he goes to college in my version.
I feel like a lot of this stuff could have been picked up in therapy pretty early on. Some of those red flags.
Yep.
Yeah, agreed. Big time.
I feel like an artist is like, my mom died. All right, and to school. I got things to do.
Journey to Ingolstadt.
Ingolstadt.
I'm actually not sure if that's how you say it.
That's how you pronounce it. That was really good.
Hell yeah.
That's how it's pronounced in the audiobook. Mine just, okay, when I read this, I thought, I don't know if this was actually in the audiobook I listened to, which I've listened to the audiobook 4 times now. So I feel familiar with that version. In this version, he talks about how the day of him leaving for college comes and Clerval spent the last evening with them, and he had fought with his father to allow him to accompany Victor and become a student, but his father said no. Mm-hmm. And so he goes, this is the line, we sat late, we could not tear ourselves away from each other, nor persuade ourselves to say the words farewell. And I'm like, Victor, Henri, you're in love. Like, it's so cute. I think it's
this one is more
romantic in that one.
Yeah, it's not as romantic in this one. It's like the same story, different flavor.
Yeah. See, the audiobook I listened to, there was not a lot of romance in it. But then, Rachel, when I heard you were wanting to look at this from the perspective of the queer community, I was like, I could see how Henri and Victor could have had a relationship. But this version, horny. They're into each other.
Yeah. Like, literally. I know. I'm kind of pissed because I'm like, where's my male longing? You know,
It's
I'm
right
like,
here. It's in the nude male cover.
This one
Yeah.
is very between the lines.
See, that's how the audiobook was, of like, I could see it if that's how you're going to look at it, but is it like outright stated? Not really. This is almost outright stated, where he's like, we didn't want to leave each other's sides. He fought to go with me, and I'm devastated to have to leave him.
This one is, he bitterly lamented that he was unable to accompany me, but his father could not be persuaded to part with him, intending that he should become a partner with him in his business, in compliance with his favorite theory, that learning was superfluous in the commerce of ordinary life. And then he, like, goes on gassing up Henri.
Oh, no, y'all, mine is hot. Mine, I'm going to read this. It's a couple of sentences. Okay. The day of my departure at length arrived. Clerval spent the last evening with us. He had endeavored to persuade his father to permit him to accompany me and to become my fellow student, but in vain. His father was narrow-minded trader and saw idlessness and ruin in the aspirations and ambition of his son. Henri deeply felt the misfortune of being debarred from a liberal education. He said little, but when he spoke, I read in his kindling eye and in his animated glance a restraint but firm resolve, not to be chained to the miserable details of commerce and to be reunited once more. We sat late. We could not tear ourselves away from each other, nor persuade ourselves to say the final words farewell.
Oh, that's much.
You don't want to be torn from each other?
That's much
Come
hotter
on.
than this version.
That's
literally. Like, in that one, I'm like, oh, yeah. Like, I get it. Like, I know exactly why everyone's like, oh, yeah, this is pretty queer, you know? But in my version, I'm like, what the fuck, guys? Like, you promised me gay boyfriends, and here I am.
No, they, like, held hands in the carriage when Victor was leaving. Like, I mean, it's not in detail, but he talks about each fancying that the other was deceived when they were, like, saying goodbye. And then I descended to the carriage, which was to convey me away. They were all there. My father again to bless me. Clerval again to press my hand once more against his chest. My Elizabeth to renew her entreaties that I would write often and to bestow the last feminine attentions on her playmate and friend. So I'm like, thruple, Clerval, and Elizabeth? Like, what is happening?
So
I couldn't figure out.
He's obsessed with gold.
Yeah. He's obsessed with a lot. I've written the word obsession in here probably 6 times already.
Listen, Victor Frankenstein is just our first bi king, all right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
You definitely know how to read between the lines in my version.
Yeah.
Now I'm kind of happy that I got the horny version.
Fair.
Saucy Frankenstein.
Yeah.
What's my kid's Frankenstein gonna be like? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What's back there?
Hopefully not sad trash. And then he goes to school and talks about wanting to find friends, is where mine leads to.
Yeah, he's very excited about university. But in mine, it specifically says that he wrote letters of introduction for all of his professors, which I was like, aw.
That's so cute.
I know. So I was like, I don't think it said letters of introduction. I think in my other version, it just said that he introduced himself. Or like he went to go meet his professors. I don't think it said letters of introduction. I just thought that was
mine
cute.
says letters of introduction, but I did not.
Yeah, mine also says letters of introduction.
I did not remember that detail, but that is so charming.
I have the following sentence highlighted because I think it's like extreme foreshadowing. What's the next sentence after that of the letters of introduction for y'all?
The professor saying he absolutely wasted all of his time studying nonsense and he must begin completely anew.
No, oh my gosh, you guys,
That's my next note.
Mine says, the next morning I delivered my letters of introduction and paid a visit to some of the principal professors. Cute. Then he goes, chance, or rather the evil influence, the angel of destruction, which asserted omnipotent sway over me from the moment I turned my reluctant steps from my father's door. Crazy. Led me first to M. Kripke, professor of natural philosophy.
No.
And I'm like, chance or the angel of destruction took you to this professor? Like, that's crazy. That's intense.
This one...
The foreshadowing of it. So then I'm like, oh, this professor has got to be bad.
This one is just like, and among others is this professor of natural philosophy.
Wow. But I do love that the professor told him, he goes, have you really spent your time studying such nonsense? And Victor's like, yeah, every minute I'm their disciple. Like,
Yes.
Yeah, it literally says, the next morning I delivered my letters of introduction and paid a visit to some of the principal professors and among others to M. Krempy, a professor of natural philosophy.
Yeah, that's mine. Mine says that too.
Wow, you
Yeah.
guys missed out on the whole evil influence, angel of destruction, omnipotent sway over me from the moment I turned my reluctant steps from my father's door. That's a killer line. Like, that makes me love
Yeah.
this book.
Yours is very post her whole family and everyone she loved dying.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
This is when she lived out her life's version of this book. Yeah, she went back through and made it way more um emo.
I love it. As she
Yeah.
should, honestly.
As she should. She deserves to. Her life
Mhm.
sucked towards the end.
Yeah.
Um,
So this one, it's like the professor mentioned that he had a counterpart, but like not really. And he's like, "You're a tool. I'm gonna go find this other professor and go listen to his lectures." And then in my version,
Tool.
that same night after he meets the professor and the other guy's like, "Oh yeah, I mean we've moved on kind of from there, but we've got all of these really cool like science. We can control the heavens now with science." He goes to that professor's house that evening. Uh-huh.
now,
And
wait a minute.
Wait a minute.
yes,
I gotta
goes to
see
his
this.
house. Goes to his house and in which I wrote scandalous. And he specifically talks about how nice it was that this professor didn't judge him. And this is the moment where the professor's like, okay, also while you're, and he talks about how the professor's home is like a very much a reflection of him and somehow makes him seem even more kind-hearted and attractive. And says that while they're conversing in his living room, that it would be important for him to be well-rounded in mathematics as
I'm
well.
trying to see if my version hasn't going to his
Okay.
house.
Almost the exact same thing happens in mine, except it happens in a classroom.
Mm-hmm.
And he is upset because he goes, Professor Crimpy, how do we say that? Crimpy?
I thought it was just
Was a
French.
little squat man with a gruff voice and a repulsive countenance. The teacher, therefore, did not prepossess me in favor of his pursuits. So he goes, he's ugly, I'm not going to listen to him. And then he meets Professor Waldman, and Waldman is the one who brought him into his classroom and showed him all of his, like, tools and instruments and sciencey stuff. And that's when Victor's like, oh, this guy's hot and he knows what he's talking about. I am going to listen to this one instead.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we've all had that hot professor where we're like,
yeah.
Right.
I'll listen good. I'll listen.
Yeah.
That's funny. Wow, he goes to his
I'm trying to
house.
see a version, or excuse me, I'm trying to see if my version has him going to his house. Mine just says that he paid him a visit.
Yeah, mine's like, I'll see if I can find
And
it.
then near the,
So I was like,
near the end of the section, it says, he then took me into his laboratory and explained to me the uses of his various machines, instructing me as to what I ought to procure and promising me the use of his own. When I should.
Does he talk about his feelings during any of this? Because when he's learning of all these tools and everything and the way they can command the thunders of heaven and earthquakes and all that kind of stuff, Frankenstein goes, as he went on talking about the professor, I felt as if my soul were grappling with a palpable enemy. One by one, the various keys were touched, which formed the mechanism of my being. Chord after chord was sounded, and soon my mind was filled with one thought, one conception, one purpose. So much has been done, exclaimed the soul of Frankenstein. More, far more, will I achieve. Treading in the steps already marked, I will pioneer a new way, explore unknown powers, and unfold to the world the deepest mysteries of creation. And that, I highlighted that of like, bing, evil scientist right there. That's the moment. That's it. Like, he's saying, we know so much, but this palpable enemy is just hitting each chord of my soul, telling me we haven't learned enough. I'm gonna learn even more.
I don't think my version has that.
Oh, it's a good paragraph.
Yeah.
I used to chunky paragraph.
Okay, I did look, and I don't think it specifically said his house. However, this is what it says. I departed highly pleased with the professor and his lecture, and paid him a visit that same evening. His manners in private were even more mild and attractive than in public, for there was a certain dignity in his mien during his lecture, which, oh no, it does say right here, which in his own house was replaced by the greatest affability and kindness.
Oh,
Wow.
So he's in
mine
his
does say
home.
that. I missed that line.
I love that in your version, Frankenstein is in his home. In my version, Frankenstein is in his head, like going full crazy. Like,
I want to read that version because I feel like it's a lot more of a
it's beautifully
peek
written
into what he's thinking.
Yeah, I feel
I
like the
know.
foreshadowing in this version, it's so like daunting. He just keeps building it up. This whatever is following him, this enemy, this evil that's following him. I feel like in this paragraph he finally accepts it and is like, "Okay, I'm going to listen to it and see where it takes me and see what else I can explore." And I like that. I kind of like watching his brain kind of unwind and see where it gets to the evil genius part.
One day, like chaotically, you're gonna just see this whole shelf, and it's gonna be different versions of Frankenstein
Yeah.
accumulated.
I know. I want to.
And it's,
I
I'm
love
just like
that.
my
gonna be.
reread is going to be a different revision for sure.
I can just send y'all this version. We'll just do Sisterhood of the Traveling Frankenstein and just send each other the different versions.
Yeah, we're just gonna photocopy it. It's gonna
Yeah.
be a minute, but
I love that. But that is actually my last note in my version of chapter 3, and that is as far as I got.
yes. Well,
this is pretty
that's
long.
good because we're
Yeah,
we're an hour
in
and 40 minutes in.
I was just about to ask. I'm like, do you have enough content here? Or
No, I was literally gonna end it
Okay.
here. To be honest,
Good. Yeah, that's as far as I've gotten. But now that I know mine is so much hornier and so much more emo, that's what I'm going to focus on my version of like all of
Thank
the
you.
emo parts that I think you guys may be missing. But I want to know where he's at because in y'all's version, he's in different places. He's with different people.
Yeah.
Mine,
Yeah.
he just like sticks with the same couple people and just obsesses over them.
Yeah. In the next one, well, I guess we'll talk about the next chapter when we get there in 2 weeks. But I think it's only going to diverge further and further from here, so I'm very excited.
Yikes. Okay. I'm excited too, though, because I do want to know what else is happening.
I'm kind of shocked by
This
the
is like getting a.
differences.
Me too. It's so much more than I thought, but it does feel like I'm getting a behind the scenes with y'all's version, which is nice.
Yours is definitely an insider scoop.
Yeah, I'm glad I got the gossip.
Thank you, Allison and Becca, for joining me. I'm excited to talk about this more in 2 weeks. And people of the internet, we'll catch you all in the next episode. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.